reason my asset store isn't loading very well here. But if you're working with Unity, Unity has a fantastic and really, really deep asset store that you can get to directly from within Unity itself. So you can just come in and go to the window menu and go to Asset Store. The Asset Store is also available online as well. There, now it's starting to load. So I could come in and say, I want some 3D props. Let's say, I want how about ranged weapons? So maybe I want a bow and arrow or something, or explosives, right? So you can get prefabricated missiles and turrets and all kinds of stuff, or even look, a catapult. Awesome, gotta love a catapult. So for $15, you can get a 3D catapult complete with a rock. What a bargain, right? And you can bring this, you can purchase this and then bring it right into Unity and leverage that asset directly from within your project. So the Unity Asset Store is great for Unity projects. I also, there are a few other ones that may be of interest. Yes? So it depends. It depends on the object. So what you purchase may include scripts for pre-scripted behaviors, but include animations. So it kind of ranges from very simple 3D objects with no functionality, all the way up to you can actually purchase fully implemented games that you can kind of remix and rebuild the levels to your heart's content. They've got everywhere in between. And the asset store is also where you can get third-party plugins like the 2D toolkit that Scott uses. Lots of good stuff there. Anything I'm missing about the asset store?
How do you protect your assets from being copied?
How do you protect your assets from being copied? That I don't know. I don't know if they have any copy protection.
They're not strongly protected, but they are out to protect the cover. And you different ways they're not really.
Right.
They actually bundle are really cool.
So again, if you're doing 3D development, another good site for that is turbosquid.com. They do have some free assets, but most of the really good stuff on TurboSquid is paid. But let's say I wanted to find a cat, go search for cat, and you can see there's $799 cat. So that's a cat that's got a lot of functionality, I would hope. But you can get down to $35 for or $15. This one looks like it's animated, so I'm kind of it's showing me different pictures of the cat. This one would actually show me the animated version. No, it's just showing me pictures. So you can see a lot of these may have very skeletons and such built into them to give you a very realistic look and feel. What's that?
It's been animated.
Yeah, some of the ones if they're animated will also include a little animated GIF of what the animation looks like. But you can very easily find 3D models and textures and things like that at TurboSquid. Another site that I was actually just introduced to is pixelprospector.com. So for indie development, they've got some really good resources for indie game developers. So everything from inspiration, game development, game design, graphics, sound and music, business and marketing, right? So that's a pretty important one. Various video game sites, etc. So I'm not going to go through all the links here, but pixelprospector.com is a good place to go. They also have a big list of pixel art tutorials. So if you're doing, kind of an old school, 8-bit looking game, pixel art is a pretty popular technique for that. So a tutorial for creating pixel art, etc. And then the last but not least, in terms of the assets that I like, this is a blog of Chris Hildenbrand. It's called 2D Game Art for Programmers. It's 2dgameartforprogrammers.blogspot.com. And he basically has a bunch, boatload of tutorials for building game art using free tools like Inkscape and GIMP. I like to go kind of backwards to forwards. If you go down to his blog archive, and go to the kind of very first, his very first blog post, he starts off with, let's get started and see what we can do with circles, right? And so you can kind of, he'll help you learn how to build characters using the primitive shapes inside. And for those of you who don't know about it, Inkscape is a vector graphics package that natively stores what you draw as SVG, but you can also export bitmaps with it. So this is a really neat way to build characters that can scale very easily, but you can also build characters in parts and connect them with pivots so that you can do basic animation. Right? So you could basically take your character and build out the different parts, and then pose it, export a bitmap, change the pose, export a bitmap, and build out your animations step by step. And you can do layers and onion skin transparency and things like that, so that you can do it essentially just like real life animators do. With the program is Inkscape, Inkscape, and it's a free open source program. Yes.
Will those URLs somewhere open?
So I will post my slide deck and these links to my blog, devhammer.net, within the next day or two, and that way I'll have them. So you get to see that, it shows you variations that you can, all of these things that you can do by taking basic circles and then manipulating those and, getting creative with them. So you can do all kinds of different characters. So that this one, if you're not an artist, if you're a programmer, you're not an artist, and you want to learn something about drawing, that this is a really good one. And the part that I want to highlight here is if you look at sort of this first tutorial, what he actually does here is step by step he shows with an outline in the toolbar for Inkscape which tool he's using for which step, right? And so you've got a very compact way of knowing, okay, so first I got to draw a circle, and I'm using the circle tool for that. So I get this nice build circle. And I add another couple of circles, and so just basically circles and circles and circles up until I get here, where I start using the path tool to convert some of the circles into a path and start, deforming, would be the way to put it, deforming those circles to create new shapes. Right? And as he walks you through these things step by step, you do these kind of over a consistent period of time. Spend a couple of weeks, just maybe do one tutorial a day. You'll start to both internalize mentally how this works, and you'll learn the tools that he uses to do these illustrations. So really good blogs to get started with. And by the way, these several sites that I've shown are not nearly the only resources out there for indie developers. There are also lots of sites where you can download free assets, whether that be 2D assets or 3D assets. What you have to be aware of is anytime you get something for free, obviously you're getting what you paid for. So the quality in free downloadable assets varies pretty dramatically from flat out not very good to pretty decent. But as you're getting started, using free assets from online can be a really good way to get started. So I also want to talk about the publishing process a little bit, and I want to go through this fairly quickly because I want to get us to kind of hands-on time. But the basic process of publishing is, don't worry about getting a developer account, right the first thing. If you want to get a developer account, go for it. It's $19, not a big deal. But first kind of go through the development and test process so you get to a point where you've got something that you're ready to publish. The only kind of counter to that I would say if you want to get your developer account early is it does make sense sometimes if you've got a unique name that you want for your game to go ahead and get that reserved. And so you'll need your developer account for that. So you may want to do that. Once you've developed and tested, that should include some level of play testing. I'm sure Scott has his kids play his games over and over again before he even thinks about publishing them. I bet they're pretty blunt with their feedback too, aren't they? No, really? They try to protect your feelings? See, my kids would be like, Daddy, this is boring. Yeah, so once you get, when you go to get your store account, if you just pay the fee, it's $19. If you're a student, you can get a free 1-year token via Dreamspark at dreamspark.com. If you're a startup, you can sign up at bizpark.com for a Bizpark account? You Bizpark partner?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Bizpark not only gives you a token for free store access, also gives you MSDN, is it Premium or Ultimate that you get? Do you know? I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, so gives you MSDN Ultimate, so you get operating system access, Visual Studio, Azure, Windows Azure credits, all of that for 3 years for free. So it's a really good deal. So if you're a startup, I would highly recommend signing up for Bizpark. If you're already an MSDN subscriber, you can also get a free 1-year token for the store through that program as well. Once you've done that, sign up for your app. You can go into the dashboard, click Submit an App. You saw that for Windows Phone, same thing for Windows Store, and then follow the instructions there. I do have a workbook for our hands-on time that kind of walks through more of these steps. Now, the last step here, iterate and update. One of the things that I strongly recommend, and I'm kind of going counter to what Scott recommended, or Scott's practice. Scott, and his partner like to build a very full-featured game, and get it done and push it out. I recommend for a lot of people, it may be best to do what's called minimum viable product, right? Figure out what's the minimum that I'm willing to release for this game. Maybe I have a set of 10 levels that I start with, and I've got 10 or 15 more that are in development, but I want to get this game published. So I get those 10 levels finished. I get somebody, get some folks to help me test them, polish them up, run them through the WAC program, make sure that they're going to pass certification, get that published. Start getting feedback from your users, right? And one of the critical pieces, and I'm sure, Scott, you'll agree with this, is make sure somewhere in your app you have the ability for people to give you feedback directly, contact you by email or link out to your website, so that rather than if somebody's running into an issue, they go onto the review and say, 1 star, you stink, they can email you and say, I ran into this, can you fix it for the next version? And that way you get the feedback rather than getting the 1-star review. So based on that feedback, you can both, okay, let me get the next rev out in a week or 2 where I've fixed any bugs that have been reported, and I add those 10 or 15 levels. And as you do that, one of the things that you'll find is that you get the chance to kind of bounce back up out of the quicksand a little bit, and people who've downloaded your app and they see that, okay, every couple of weeks I get extra levels, they like that a lot, right? At first they might say, well, it's only 10 levels. But then they get an update a week later and they've got 10 more levels, and then kind of continuing on, it feels like they're getting more for this, for free essentially. But what you've done is given yourself the opportunity to get that feedback very quickly, implement that feedback, update bugs, and add value. You had something you wanted to?
Actually, I was going to reiterate what you were saying. It definitely helps getting above the quicksand for just start popping up on app websites as well as inside of these devices without using it.
Right.
So if you could be coming about a month afterwards or whatever, that would help.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing is, if you spend 6 months building something and then release it, and it turns out that like the 911 app, that it's not what the market wants, you've spent a lot of time figuring out that this is not, that what I thought was going to be an awesome game that everybody will love didn't work out so well. If you spent, a month and a half and built a portion of that app, and then, there's no interest at all and people don't really get it or something like that, it's much easier to kind of cut your losses and say, okay, so that one wasn't my best idea. Let me move on to the next thing. But if it turns out that it's very popular and people like it, then you can enhance it and add features and add levels as you go along. Make sense? I hope so. All right, marketing. So I'm going to just do the real high level of marketing. Bullet point 1 may seem obvious, but you must market your app. A lot of people don't do this. Okay? A lot of people think marketing is exactly the same as publishing your app to the store. I publish my app to the store, isn't that enough? No. You need to have a website, right? You need to go through and think about what do I name my app. You need to create a good description, and go and look whether it's the Windows Phone Store, the Windows Store, the Play Store, the iOS App Store. go and look at the target markets that you're in and look at how names and descriptions show up in those marketplaces. Because in some cases, what you get is you've got sort of a first page that shows up, and then you might have a see more link or button to click. And so if the most compelling parts of how you're marketing your app isn't in that first paragraph, that's a terrible missed opportunity, right? If the first paragraph is just sort of blah-de-blah-de-blah fluffy stuff that doesn't tell somebody about what they're getting with your app, and they have to click to see more, the percentage of people who actually click to see more is minuscule compared to the people who read that first paragraph. So you got to have the meat of what you're telling people about your app early on. You've got to grab them quickly. My colleague Stacy Mulcahy is working on a blog series on marketing apps. So again, I'll post this deck to my blog shortly after the site. I will say, just particularly since we have a youngster in the room, her website is a little colorful in terms of its name, so just something to be aware of. I'll leave it at that. Last but not least, you absolutely have to have a website. You do not have a choice here. One, you need a website to market your apps and to tell people about your studio. And even if you're one person, you're a studio, right? You don't need to tell people that you're one person, sitting in your jammies coding these games. If you're one person, you're still a studio. Just saying. And the other reason that you need to have a website is if your app does anything, particularly for Windows, if your app does anything where it accesses the internet, like if you go out and work with a third-party component to do leaderboard lists or things like that, you, by policy, in order to be certified on the Windows Store, you have to have a privacy policy. Now, Microsoft will not tell you what that privacy policy needs to be. If you go and look at the certification requirements at dev.windows.com, you go to dev.windows.com and just search certification requirements. We do list out specifically kind of the aspects that you need to discuss in terms of a privacy policy, but the official Microsoft position is the privacy policy is a legal document between you and the user. So it's up to you to define what that is. Specifically, you need to tell the user, here's how we deal with personally identifiable information about you, right? Do you store it? Do you transmit it? Do you share it with third parties? How can the user get rid of it if they want, how can they request that you delete their personal information if you're storing it? And that can even be something as simple as if you use their IP address for something, you need to let them know that. Right? So there are just some specifics that you need to cover there. For those who are so inclined, it's not a bad idea to have an attorney look over your privacy policy. Again, just in terms of understanding you're setting up an agreement between you and the user at that point, and you want it to be basically correct. If you are looking to get in inexpensively, if you go to windowsazure.com, you can sign up for a free Windows Azure website. That can be a great place to put static content about your apps. If you go for the free level, which you can actually host, I think up to 10 free websites on an account. Doesn't cost you anything, but but your domain would be myname.azurewebsites.net. For about $10 a month, which is what I run my blog on, you can get a custom domain name, and it's kind of a shared tier where you're on a shared server, but it's virtualized, so it's really easy to kind of keep it going and up and whatnot. And Azure will manage all of the stuff of, okay, if this particular Azure server falls over, we'll go ahead and immediately migrate your content back over to a server that's working, and that sort of thing. Yes.
For the Windows Azure, you talk about the free 10 websites. Can we run a code like backend for free account? Like backend code, like Node.js?
It'll run anything basically that IIS will do. And actually, there's a gallery where you can actually run WordPress, you can run Orchard, there's a whole lot of CMSs, commerce engines, a lot of stuff that's just right out of the box. You just install it, configure it, and it's running. I mean, I can get a WordPress site up on Azure websites in 10 minutes or less.
For free accounts?
For free, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a good deal. All right, so call to action. Got a couple of things to share. One of the things is our marketing team has actually come up with a great plan to help you market your apps. So if you send an email once your app is published to msdneast@microsoft.com, they will send you 100 customized business cards with your app tile and your download directions, 100 customized stickers with your app tile, promotion on our MSDN East Facebook page, a $5 Starbucks card to keep you awake as you work on your next app, and a 1,600 Xbox Live points for gaming. If you want to take a break in game. All of this information is on this larger card. Is on this larger card that is in the back of the room. If you did not pick one of these up, pick one up before you leave. So it's got the email address and all the instructions and everything. So a little extra treat for us. Also at the back of the room is the Modev Windows 10K app contest. So this is eligible for apps or games for Windows Phone and Windows 8. If you've got an app that has been, all the details are on the URL here, but basically between November and then I think beginning of November and December 31st, if you publish an app to the Windows Phone or Windows 8 store, you can submit that for the contest. There are two categories. There's a kind of judged category, which is a panel of judges will choose the apps from the submissions. In that category, top prize is $2,500. Second prize is $1,500. Third prize is $1,000. There's also a People's Choice category where they'll just basically put the apps out on their website and people can download them and choose which one they prefer. Same prizes for that category. So a total of $10,000 worth of prizes available for that contest. Scott, I think you said you submitted for...
I did submit.
Yeah. We got to give Scott a little run for his money here. I think Scott's got a good chance. He's got a very nice program, but see if you can give him some competition. As I mentioned before, Bizpark is a program for software development startups. So if you consider yourself a startup, if you're developing software, if you're privately held, public companies are not eligible, less than 5 years old and making less than $1 million in revenue. And I'm guessing if anybody's making $1 million in revenue, they're probably not going to be in this room right now. Just a guess. You can go to aka.ms/Bizspark now, or just go to bizspark.com and you can sign up. If you've got questions about the program, I'm sure Scott would be happy to relate his experience offline. All right, so a little later than I'd hoped, but we'll spend the rest of the time between now and 2 o'clock doing hands-on. Actually, what I want to do first, keep delaying a little bit. First things first, what I'd like to do is have everybody turn in this card, the Stay Connected card. Basically, there's a checkbox here that says, I'd like to stay connected, which means keeping up with what I'm sharing on the upcoming events and things like that. You don't need to check that to win a prize, but I'm going to collect these, so please write your name legibly, so that I can read it. And I will collect these up, and what I've got is some goodies here. I had a break in my back here. So I have some mice. I do not have an Xbox One in here, sorry. All right, I have a headset. I have a copy of Professional Windows 8 Programming Application Development with C# and XAML. I have 2 Xbox Live 1,600 point cards. I have Gears of War Triple Pack, Halo 4, Kinect Disneyland, and Kinect Sports. So 4 Xbox games. Let's see if I can clutter things up really big time here. Another mouse and the Wedge Mobile keyboard and Wedge Mobile mouse. I use this keyboard with my Dell Venue 8 8-inch tablet. Really nice keyboard. I haven't used the Wedge mouse, but the keyboard's very nice. So the way I do this, and if you're not filling out your Stay Connected cards, fill it out now. The way I'm going to do this is I will start calling names. The first person that I call, come up and choose whatever you want. First person gets the choice of everything. I'm going to keep calling names, and if the first person is dilly-dallying and not deciding quickly, somebody else can come and poach what you want. So don't take your time. Just come up and make a decision and get what you want. So once you're done, I'll grab from the first row, pass them to your right. Okay.
Who's taking care of you?
Nice.
Okay.
And make sure you trust the person that you hand them to. Life tip. I'm tempted one of these days to just, try something like just fling the cards, and whoever catches their own card gets the prize. Yes. All right, who's still working? Anybody?
Got one here.
Still working? You don't have to write me a novel. Just. By the way, I will mentally know what you're putting down on your eval, so if you give me a 9, you're guaranteed a prize. Just kidding. In terms of the evals, I will get those at the end, or you can bring them up whenever you get ready to head out. In terms of the evals, one of the things I do ask is if for whatever reason you don't think I deserve anything higher than a 7, and by the way, 9s are good and 1s are bad, so if you think if it's number 1, give me 9s. If you believe that I have not performed up to the level of a 7 or above, please put some specific notes as to what I can improve. The question was, if I give you a 10, can I have an Xbox One? If I had one, I'd consider it. As it stands, no. Anybody else still working on their set? I didn't work on the Xbox, so unfortunately, no. I don't get any Xbox One for free. So, anybody else still working on a card? What's that? I do. So I'm gonna grab the middle here, and I got QUOC. Okay, that's you. Come on up. All right. Think fast. As I've got John Shu. Well, you must be the luckiest man in the world. That's like 3 workshops in a row. He's a winner. That is book for programming with C# and XAML. All right, Jose. Congrats.
Anything?
Yeah, whatever you want from what's there. Except you can't have my laptop. Sorry about that. Stanley Lamb. Michael. Congrats.
Mouse 4000.
Do this one?
Yep. Thank you. Christmas present for my daughter.
There you go. Hey,
3-time winner.
Early Christmas shopping. Hey, I've already got some of the kids stuff shopped for. Stephen WEKH. Congrats. His dad can accept on his behalf. Come on, give the kid a break. Jeez Louise. That's just mean. BISRAT. With a name like Duffy, sometimes I'll just spell it out because I get like Doothy and Dutchy, and I'd rather spell it out than mispronounce. All right, Long. We got games, we got cards, and we got 1 mouse left. All right. Donald Scott. I'm just going to do it this way rather than put my arms behind my back all day. These are upside down. You all can trust me, right? Tony Shu. Vedim. All right, so we got 1 point card in 2 games. Zech, Z-E-C-H. We got Connect Disneyland or Connect Sports. And CJ Liu. There you go. All right, so at this point we'll go into hands-on. Again, if you don't have the software needed to do the hands-on, what I'm going to do is I'll run through the 3 slides. You can get down the URLs for the exercises. Basically, exercise 1 is you get go visit aka.ms/BabylonJSTut for tutorial. That'll take you to my colleague's blog for the tutorial that I showed you a little bit earlier. For exercise 2, which is for Unity, aka.ms/UnityTut1. This is another tutorial series that another colleague of mine from Europe wrote. It's actually, I think he's got 6 or 7 different parts to it. So part 1 is very thorough in terms of kind of the whole walkthrough. Part 2 talks about publishing, and then kind of goes on from there. But this is the first part. I also mentioned specifically in the URL here, this is the URL that will take you to the online, the web version of Unity's asset store, to that 2D platform tutorial that I showed you, the one with the beam with the bazooka. So you can download that and see how they're doing all kinds of stuff in that. That includes sound, it includes colliders, it includes keeping track of score. So in terms of a relatively small scope game that demonstrates all of the features of the 2D environment in Unity 4.3, this is a great place to kind of look at examples of how they're doing stuff. Last but not least, it should be exercise 3, not exercise 2. If you go to aka.ms/GameWkbks, you can download, there's a PDF file there that you can download that walks through the publishing process. So go back here, let people kind of write that down, and and I can take questions as you guys are doing that, or I can just shut up. Either way. Hopefully you found some value in this. Good way to spend a Saturday and learn about some fun stuff. Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yeah.
Good. Yes?
Do you have any professional sound effects in the type of like website that you can download sound effects?
So if you go to that the Pixel Prospector. If you go to that Pixel Prospector site, yeah, they have links to all kinds of resources, sounds and stuff like that. There is actually one, and it's not necessarily specific to sound effects per se, but one of the things that's a useful resource in terms of music specifically, there's actually, I'll see if I can remember what it's called. I think it's soundation.com. So this is actually an online, it's Flash-based, which I'm not real keen on, but basically it's a Flash-based digital audio workstation software in the browser. And so if you're looking to do just like background music and stuff, you can go in here and they've got a whole collection of free sounds. So I can go in and say, okay, let me get a bass loop going here, and I can then go in and right. So I can just start bringing in loops from this, and come in and say, okay, let's grab that. Right, so I can just start grabbing loops and putting stuff together, and build out some kind of a basic background music for my app, and then I can just save that. I can export that out as a WAV file. I think that's. Yeah, so I actually have to log in to do that. And it's got audio support, MIDI support, stuff. So this is if you don't want to go through the hassle of deciding, okay, do I want to use something like Sonar? Do I want to use something like Ableton? Or there's a bunch of different ways to do that. And so you could probably come up with some sound effects there. The other thing that's really useful, depending on the style of your game, is So BFXR is actually an online, basically kind of 8-bit style sound effect creator. So I can come in here and say, okay, I want to have an explosion sound. So I can just tap on the explosion button, and it gives me kind of that Atari or Commodore style. And I can have things like lasers, right? So it's a very fast way of generating, and it will just basically generate based on these parameters here, different styles of sounds. But then you can come in and modify them so you can make them use a different type of wave. And you can change parameters. You can go in and tweak all of the various parameters to make up the sound, and then export those as WAV files. Right. So a lot depends on the style of your game as to whether this fits. But this is a very fast and easy way for specific styles of games to get going with sounds. So that's a couple of resources.
It's all free, right?
Yeah, the BFXR, the Soundation, I think both of those are free. I think there are some premium sounds that you can get with the Soundation that you can get access to for the Soundation tool, but they have a free set of sounds that you can start with. I beg your pardon?
Probably only free for prototyping.
So with BFXR, it's free, period. You can use all the sounds that you create with this for anything you want to use it for. It's also, they designed the site such that you can save all the HTML and such and use it offline completely. So this one's very open. I would say my recommendation for Soundation is find their terms of service and check them, because I don't know specifically if they have limitations on how you can use that stuff. When you're using, in general, when you're using free assets of any kind, you do need to check and see what license restrictions the author has imposed on them, if any. And respect those. And generally speaking, most of the free asset providers do, what they want is they want you to note that they're the ones who created it, right? They want credit. And that's, an easy enough thing to do to give people credit when you use their assets. So. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Again, I will flip back to the slides for folks who want to do hands-on. But if you're either not up for the hands-on, or you don't have your machine set up, again, I will post these decks to my blog, devhammer.net, within the next day or two. So you can go ahead and just hit up the blog, grab the slide deck, go to the URLs, and do the hands-on stuff on your own if you prefer. Oh, okay, sure. There you go. Yes. Yeah, if you would please bring me your eval before you head out, that would be great. I didn't take out.